Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. My name is Anurag Vuthunuri. I am part of Analyst and Associate Board. We are a young professional organization that is parented by FEI Chicago, Financial Executives International. A&AB tries to bridge the gap between CFOs, controllers, and established finance and accounting professionals in Chicago with young professionals and college students and people who are trying to network and build their network. So something that we're going to be doing in A&AB now is these type of webinars to introduce you guys to established business professionals and learn more about specific parts of the industry. Today, we have Mr. William Jefferson Black, the chair of the Corporate Development Institute, and I would like to welcome him and get this rolling. William, thanks for joining us today.
Terrific. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your background to get started?
Sure. Well, I maybe start at the more interesting beginning, and then we could start to talk about mergers and acquisitions. But I started working on the beach in South Australia as a bartender, which is a very unusual pursuit as a young professional with a degree in economic theory and economic policy. But some interesting economic lessons when you're pouring beers on the beach in Australia is the more beer you pour, the more tips you get. So some early adventures, but ultimately, after traveling around Southeast Asia and living in Australia for a number of years and working there, I returned to the US and to Chicago from Michigan originally, and started working in valuation, in an investment banking role, and at a financial advisory firm, which is how I came to know FEI, and in particular started to get involved in the FEI Chicago chapter, which I really enjoyed. And so spent a lot of years involved in FEI and continued to have a lot of great FEI friends, and always looking for ways to get involved in FEI. And obviously it's another great occasion to do that.
So we have all been doing internships incorrectly then. So we should all be starting off as bartenders?
Well, you know, I was actually quite an accomplished bartender. I must say, I'm bragging a little bit, but I could make a Singapore Sling and a Mai Tai and about 120 other mixed drinks. You know, I've forgotten most of the recipes now, but it was a lot of fun to learn the bartending business and spend a little time on the beach. And you know, the truth is, after about three months, I craved more intellectual challenge, and was fortunate enough to get sponsored by a company in Australia. And so I worked as an analyst in Australia for 2 years. So actually most of the time was really professional work in Melbourne, and really enjoyed that experience. And, you know, I must tell you, to this day, I, speak Australian pretty fluently and draw on my international experience on a pretty regular basis. I, both in college, it's traveled internationally, and then after school. And gosh, I've probably been lucky enough to spend some time in about 50 countries across Asia, Africa, Europe, and at least 2-3 years of collective time overseas. And have continued to draw on that experience both in business meetings overseas, in dealing now today with clients in probably 35 countries, and dealing with the global business environment has been tremendously valuable for my career. Frankly, it's been a lot of fun and very rewarding, and continues to excite me as I think about where opportunities exist for my continued professional growth, for advancement in my career. And so certainly as it relates to internships, I'd encourage anybody with an opportunity to look for opportunities to develop their cross-border expertise. And it was certainly invaluable for my career. And I frankly thought it gave me a leg up. I think I went faster, more quickly in my professional pursuits using that experience, and so certainly recommend that to others.
I completely agree, and something that we are really seeing in today's world is the new majors and minors of international business, and like universities and MBA programs really offering that opportunity for young professionals and any professional to kind of go abroad and kind of get that exposure. So that's awesome that you've been able to experience all that in your career, and especially to start off in Australia and then kind of make your way over here.
Right. Yeah, it's also nice to be, home, and, I've got a lot of family in the Chicago area, and, I just love the business community in Chicago, and I've been really fortunate to spend a lot of time in London and in Paris, and each market has its own unique characteristics, and obviously being, based here, I spend quite a bit of time in San Francisco and New York, and regularly we run programs there, and so I spend a couple weeks a year in both San Francisco and in New York. And it's always nice to come home to Chicago. There's something really special about this business community here. And, FEI is a great example and anchor to that, where you get smart, hardworking people that are conscientious, not only about their own professional work, but the others that they're surrounded with. And, I always love the spirit of camaraderie and professional development that, is part of it. And obviously we're having a chat in the middle of January where it's a great opportunity to really invest in your future and your skills and develop your network and your relationship. Not as much time out on the beach, but it's a chance to really advance our professional pursuits in the winter. And, I think that might be part of the strength of being a Chicagoan.
Absolutely. And no matter what anyone says, I strongly believe Chicago is a great city to do business in and be in for the financial space. And I personally think New York's a little overrated, but New York definitely has its pros and cons. So kind of talking about your business, do you mind sharing a little bit about your organization now and what you kind of currently do?
Sure. No, pleasure. And so, I left investment banking with this big idea that I was gonna branch out with my business partner, Nora Hickey, and we were gonna start the Harvard Business Review of the M&A world. So we set out and put out the first issue of Transaction Advisors, an M&A journal. And the ambition was similar to the Harvard Business Review, where innovation and improvement in management and leadership were taking hold, where research into the use of metrics in organization, in self-forming teams, in how to manage global organizations was evolving. And the understanding of more complex disciplines like management and leadership were really taking hold. And we thought there was a very interesting opportunity to bring that same curiosity to the M&A space. And certainly mergers and acquisitions were becoming more and more complex. The volume and velocity of deals was increasing. And yet, as we looked around, we didn't see a library or repository of knowledge that was as accessible, that was as dynamic as we thought there was a need for. So set off to create this big vision for the Harvard Business Review of the M&A world. And fast forward now, eight years later, it's really evolved from the early ambition of being just simply a publication of knowledge to really being a much more holistic institute, a broader institute for all of the corporate development knowledge that's important in both planning, in structuring, and executing complex transactions. And certainly buy-side M&A dominates a lot of our focus. Corporate acquirers are always looking to improve the terms, the conditions, the methods in which they negotiate deals. But they're also looking at the sell side and divestitures, carve-out transactions, non-core assets that can be released to a financial sponsor to free up capital for higher and better uses. They're looking at complex financing transactions, sale leasebacks, dividend recaps, IP licensing deals. And so the sophistication, the velocity and pace in which these deals are being conducted is continuing to increase. And so we've now evolved, I would say, to be a full corporate development institute. So we conduct original M&A research and curate research from around the M&A industry. We host a series of M&A conferences around the country. We do that in the spring in partnership with the Wharton campus in San Francisco, at the University of Chicago every summer, and then out on the East Coast at Cornell's new tech campus in New York City in the fall. We also host an M&A Academy, which is a pretty elite and intensive training program. It's led by our faculty chair, Professor Stephen Morissette from University of Chicago's Booth School of Business, where he also teaches the M&A curriculum there. And that program is a real nice jumping off point as well for a series of M&A master classes. So, for those that have a good basic understanding of M&A, but are looking for really deep expertise in valuation or in synergy modeling and integration, our series of M&A masterclasses provide much more intensive training opportunities to really develop much more advanced knowledge and sophistication around those areas. And so across the disciplines, from M&A training and conferences and research, we're always trying to answer this simple question of how to do better deals. And that curiosity and that pursuit continues to keep us entertained and keeps our members very engaged, because we're all under increasing obligations and expectations to improve the performance of the deals we're doing, and deals are happening all the time. And so it's really becoming a very core part of the financial discipline and expertise that I think all financial executives need to have.
That's awesome. And I think especially in the field that we're really talking about, M&A, we have a lot of high achievers in that field, as it's something very sophisticated and something tough to really do well in. So I think providing those resources to allow these high achievers to take their skills to the next level is very important. So thank you for doing that and helping our community there. How has the M&A community and the deals and everything been affected by COVID-19? That's kind of been the question of the year. Everyone wants to know, hey, how has this industry been affected? How has this industry been affected? But what's the deal flow kind of looking like today?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's been an interesting study in two major areas, I'd say. So one is that COVID-19 has created certainly some winners and some losers. And across that theme, digitization is an important part of that, as you might expect. And so we're seeing some traditional industries that are doing deals to basically protect themselves from downside. That is part of the new pandemic characteristics in that industry. So we're seeing people do deals to broaden their scope, to expand their capability, to improve their performance that's been negatively affected by COVID-19. We've certainly seen others more opportunistically doing deals, to capitalize on the strength of their business coming out of this. We've seen certainly a lot of shifts in demand and spend. And so we certainly are seeing some very strong firms, and the technology companies are certainly a great example, where the move to a virtual and all digital workplace is creating more and more demand for their offerings. And they're taking advantage of this opportunity to invest in what they believe to be the future and the next generation. So, so we're certainly seeing some defensive, and we're seeing some offensive moves in terms of M&A. We're starting now, I'd say as well, that we're deeper into this period of time to see more carve-outs. So there's been quite a run-up in corporate accumulation of assets and deals over many years, some of which have proven to be core and some are not. And so as people evaluate the portfolio of past deals, there's certainly more questions being asked about divestitures. And so I think we're going to see, probably in the next 12 months or so, increasing velocity in carve-outs. Those are particularly tricky transactions for companies to do, but boy, they really can be effective in cleaning up the balance sheet, focusing capital where there's the highest and best use. And companies that are pretty sophisticated M&A practitioners usually do look at carve-outs just as much as they do on the buy side. So, I'll maybe pivot a bit and also extend, you asked about changes from COVID-19, and my first comments were really about strategy. The other change is really in execution and tactics. And so a couple of the areas that we're seeing shift now. So the protections that one looks for in a deal have been of far greater importance. So financial representations and warranties about the integrity of the balance sheet and the income statement. It's very difficult to diligence on site, to look somebody in the eye, to shake their hand, to see those verifications that are needed to get comfort are strained. And in the absence, people are looking for additional protection. So the use of reps and warrants insurance, the use of escrows and holdbacks, the use of contingent consideration mechanisms provide a level of sophistication and protection so that they can hopefully counter some of the risk that they may be taking in the absence of the traditional on-site diligence. The same is true operationally. We're seeing changes in deal structures. It used to be day one was a big party. it was a kickoff, and it was a 100-day plan, and you were going to integrate the organization. And so, if the organization celebrated and happy hours on Thursdays, everyone gets invited. There was a real cultural development that took place. That's very tough to do when everyone's working from home. So a new deal structure has emerged in standalone acquisitions. And so it could be that a company's buying a target today, but they don't plan to integrate that target. They will go slowly. They might integrate it in 12 or 18 months. Well, in the meantime, governance is tricky. The look for synergy realization and value drivers might shift. So we're also seeing different deal terms because integration is much harder. So the front-end diligence has certainly changed. The integration thinking has changed in some deals. And so the execution elements and characteristics are certainly different and unique and arguably more complex. So again, the way deals were done a year ago could be different today. Really speaks to, I guess the spirit as well of this conversation, which is one needs to continually stay abreast of new techniques, new methods, new approaches. The financial model from a year ago may be irrelevant today. And so all of us, it's really incumbent to keep developing our skills, to keep enhancing our capabilities. And certainly M&A has been one of many areas of the financial disciplines where, one really needs to stay sharp and stay up to speed on the way deals are getting done.
Absolutely. And out of all these changes that you kind of mentioned, do you see a lot of them staying the same after COVID, or do you see it kind of going back to that relationship tailored business, as that's what pure finance has always been, and like these deals are built on trust, kind of like you said? Or do you think we're in this new wave of, hey, this is life now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And most of our time we spend with public company acquirers that really are focused on the buy side. And these are really sophisticated serial acquirers. And most believe that the digital diligence, the negotiations will continue for some period of time. And the expectation is really more nuanced, that it's the hybrid. So it used to be, that you'd send a pretty significant number of people to due diligence, to negotiate the financial terms, the legal terms, to have management integration meetings. But the hybrid approach is really capturing everyone's attention right now. So the principals may be in the room, but the other 10 or 20 supporting analysts and others may be there remotely. And by way of that, if we do see a continuation of digital engagement and negotiation, I think we all need to be mindful too of how that changes, how our presence digitally may need to be improved, may need to be more dynamic. We may need to be mindful to speak up and to look for nonverbal cues across the video that we might pick up in a meeting. And so both our human dynamics and characteristics will probably need to continue to improve. I think certainly our technical acumen will need to continue to improve. And we'll probably need to look for more of these hybrid solutions in the future that, really provide a benefit. And that is probably the new may not be going back to the old. It may not stay all digital, but I think we'll probably be looking for hybrid relationships with targets, with vendors. And that, I think, brings a really nice balance. So I think we all need to be looking to embrace that as what might ultimately be the new normal.
Absolutely. And this new normal is pretty much going to be the only thing that young professionals kind of know. People like me who are recently graduating college, or like students who are now graduating college. How can young professionals and students who want to break into M&A kind of do so in today's landscape? Like, what's the ideal career path that investment banks or other M&A employers are kind of looking for?
Yeah, great and interesting question, because there are a couple of paths that one might consider. So, certainly investment banking is probably the most well, recognized and known path for somebody that's interested in deals. So, the typical path in an investment bank as an analyst, an associate, ultimately a vice president, and a managing director is quite an interesting career path. So, I used to lead a team of about 35 financial analysts at an investment banking firm that would come in, and within a year or two, their role would change pretty measurably from doing the financial analysis, so recasting pro forma financial statements, doing valuation work, modeling deals. And all of a sudden, they did that well, and they became managers. So the expectation was dramatically different, that they could coach, they could inspire, they could lead people and coach them on how to do financial models, coach them on how to develop their careers. So within a very short amount of time, what they did when they came into the office changed, and then it changed again. The third change was then they became vice presidents or senior vice presidents, and now they weren't managers or coaches anymore. Now they were salespeople. So they were both selling companies to other companies, and they were selling the firm's investment banking services to potential clients. And so now they weren't coming into the office every day. They were on the plane every day. And so a career that started in front of Excel as a financial analyst, where someone with great financial acumen all of a sudden became now a manager of people. And that was a different skill set and rewarding for some people, and for others, not rewarding. And then you get this third job, which is to be a salesperson. And you're either selling a company or you're selling your firm's services to somebody else. Very, very few people do a great job at all three. Very few of us are wired to be financial analysts and then salespeople. And so sometimes you'll have in those three chapters great success in one, but all the skills that made you successful in either level 1 or stage 2 or stage 3, may not translate. And so one needs to know that, that's going to be a changing lifestyle, and that could be quite interesting, but it's a career path that's quite different, from the start to, when somebody gets to be 25, and then when they get to be 30 and 35, they're going to be doing very, very different work. Now, another path one can pursue is consulting. And certainly there are a number of advisory firms that are involved in the M&A world, from diligence to integration, strategy work. And that career path has its own characteristics, again, where often you're doing work in the early days of your career, you're starting to manage teams later, and then you're starting to sell work. But in that case, I think one of the things that's quite different about the consulting world is that the discipline can extend. So from just doing deals, it can be now doing strategy work to do a commercial partnership, or it can be doing restructuring work. And so intellectually, it can be far more diverse than simply transactional work. It also tends to be less driven around the financial metrics and big bonuses for deals. Investment bankers are there to do deals, and so that's what they do. They do deals, and they sink or swim, or have a great financial year or not based on the deals. Consultants will tend to have a much steadier flow of income, maybe not the big ups and maybe not the big downs, but they'll have a much more diverse perspective probably in which they're advising the company on what they're doing. And certainly deals open up a huge opportunity for companies to improve, to bring in the best of the target, to get rid of the legacy systems, to really change. Now that it's not 1 + 1, but can you make it 3? And so there's a tremendous amount of post-merger integration and financial integration that needs to happen after deals are done. And so consultants can keep themselves very busy intellectually in a variety of areas, not just the deal, but how to really make the business work after. And that leads me to the third, I'd say, of 3 sort of paths. So, the first being investment banking, really transactionally focused. The second being a consultant. And the third being in-house at a company. And so the corporate development role at companies is really an interesting pursuit. And again, they have analysts and then they often call managers, directors, and then heads of corporate development. And so this is the in-house role, working at a big public company often, or at a family office, or also at a private equity firm. Really, it's the same type of role, but internally you're doing deals. And so in that case, you're both modeling and studying and negotiating the deal, but you're also doing spend a lot of time working with advisors, with vendors, with people that provide your diligence or your legal review or your financial analysis or your capital market structure. And so you're, in that case, really much more of a coordinator and a quarterback, and you're often managing a pipeline of multiple deals. But what's fun about that in-house corporate development role is you're not just looking for a target to do a deal, but then you're trying to unlock the value of that deal within your organization. So one that's quite diplomatic, that can understand how to make the deal work and work with the business owners to do that, would really do well in corporate development. Now, financially, it's probably not often as lucrative to be in corporate development as it is in investment banking. It's probably a far steadier career path. Investment banking, when the deals dry up, the jobs dry up, the commissions dry up. It can be very much ups and downs. You can have a great year and then a year that goes to zero. Corporate development is a far steadier path. May not be as lucrative, but certainly from a lifestyle perspective, it's not anywhere near the 60, 70, 80-hour weeks that you might hear in investment banking or in consulting. So it certainly can be a intellectually very interesting and certainly a very rewarding path. So those are the three I'd really highlight.
Absolutely, and I think that really well demonstrates the different facets of the M&A business. So thank you for that. So let's say someone went through one of these paths and now is ready to kind of take on that next step of being an expert in the M&A space. You kind of talked a little bit about the M&A Academy. Can you kind of share a little bit about any initiatives that the M&A Academy is doing to help young professionals, and how young professionals or professionals who are ready to take that next step can kind of get involved with it?
Yeah, well, and I think it's really a broad challenge for all of us, really at any age, but it's certainly particularly acute for young professionals that are looking to differentiate themselves vis-a-vis another candidate, whether that be an internal candidate or other candidates, for a new role. But it used to be that we would look to our undergraduate degrees, to our grad school degrees as our training. That was our expertise, and then everything else was learned on the job. The reality today is that all of us should be looking at each year in our own personal, professional performance plan to be adding a new skill set. And it's unbelievable the amount of knowledge that has been released digitally in the world. And many of you know the Khan Academy or the Corporate Finance Institute or the Corporate Development Institute that we operate. There are professional development and learning opportunities all over the internet. And like a lot of things in life, you get exactly what you pay for. The market has a really good ability of sorting out that some things are worth paying for and some things are free. And often if something's free, it might be worth that. So as one pursues knowledge and skill development, I think we all have to be realistic that you often get what you pay for. There's no free training out there that doesn't either come with a catch or isn't worth probably what you pay for it. But you got to think realistically of 100% of your salary. Can you allocate 1% of that to your own professional development? Can you ask your employer to sponsor a training program? Ask for 1% of your salary. And whether that's developing your skills, so Excel modeling, valuation, or really your experience, getting exposure to new financial disciplines and areas of expertise. This is money well spent, and it's time well spent. I think all of us, and probably in Chicago in particular, should be thinking every winter, can't go outside as comfortably, it's the time to do something. Kick off the new year every January. What's your resolution? I'm gonna learn valuation modeling. I'm gonna learn synergy modeling. I'm gonna develop advanced Excel skills. I'm gonna learn about deals, and that's an investment you've got to consider throughout your career. It's a great way to make the winter pass. It's a great way to get an edge and get ahead. And certainly the M&A training that we offer, our master classes, our M&A Academy are great examples of that. But there are so many. There are real estate training courses. And I think we all need to be looking constantly for what's my 2021 skill development, what's my 2022 development, what's my plan for 2023. And you just can't take a year off. We don't know enough, and the world's becoming far more sophisticated, and we need to develop our skills, and all of us should be thinking about that. And maybe it's a good New Year's resolution to kick off the year saying, I'm gonna do one thing this year. I'm gonna develop my skills in X area. And I think it's incumbent on all of us. And it doesn't matter if you're young or you're mid-career or old. I think we all need to be looking at this as a continued development of our expertise. And it's frankly a lot of fun to do it, but it just takes the willpower to get started. And once you do, it's easy to finish the course, and most of them are getting pretty good. They're engaging, they're entertaining, and you'll feel pretty darn good about yourself when you learn a lot from them. And boy, what an advantage as you go into a discussion and say, well, I've taken this course, I've done this certificate, I've developed my skills in this area. That is so differentiated that it will certainly pay unbelievable returns. Like I said, what if it's just 1%? What a return that you can get out of that 1% of investment.
Oh, 100%. So that's a really good point. And I think that's something that everyone should really kind of think about, because I think a lot of the development people, right when they come out of college, or they're like, oh, let me grow in my job. And then they're like, okay, now I need to go to master's, or I need to get my MBA to kind of take that next step. Like you said, not many are exposed to opportunities like this where, hey, you don't need to spend 200 grand to go to MBA to take your career to the next level. Like 1% of your salary, take these courses, like everything's digitalized now. Like, it's awesome that all these opportunities are really growing in this digital space around us, and give everyone that opportunity to keep growing. So to kind of put this talk to finish, what is one piece of advice that you would give for professionals, let it be in the M&A space or outside the M&A space, just people who are looking to keep growing their career every single day and really giving back to their company, their surroundings, and
The biggest mistake I see young professionals make, and the biggest strength I see in contrast a number of professionals draw on throughout their career, is LinkedIn. The care in which you care for your reputation on LinkedIn could not be understated. And financial executives in particular, I think, often believe that their financial acumen is the most important element of their career and their professional development. And I think that we are often remiss in giving as much care to our professional reputation. And it doesn't mean you've got to post every day on LinkedIn, but it means that in the same way that we all developed our first resume and we went through and made sure there wasn't a typo in sight, we need to think about LinkedIn with the same care and sophistication. It is critically important. It's the first place everybody looks. So what do you know? What's your career story? What's your path? We are checking people out on LinkedIn every day before we ever have the first conversation. And people whose LinkedIn is sloppy, it's out of date, it doesn't tell a cohesive story. And even if that story is diverse, if it's well presented, it is professional. And so the one critical piece of advice for anyone, whether it's pursuing M&A or finance or accounting, controller roles, is their reputation is critical, and LinkedIn is the way to do it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that advice, and more importantly, just all the insight and thought that you have provided for us today. I know I learned a lot, and I hope all of our viewers learn a lot. And I hope that M&A Academy keeps growing and you guys really continue to help our generation kind of take that next step, because that digital instruction is very necessary. And this is an awesome initiative that you guys are doing.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you quick to wrap up. I, for many years, have been involved in the FEI Scholarship Fund and continue to have a lot of interest in supporting that. All of the scholarship recipients that we selected and rewarded have connected with me on LinkedIn. I've continued to keep in touch with them, and I'd invite anybody who's watching this to send me an invitation to connect on LinkedIn. I can respond to that invitation right away. I've got an ability to offer some special registration opportunities for people that want to attend the M&A Academy or some of the M&A master classes. So, first and foremost, connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll see I'm connected to the FEI Chicago chapter as well. And, let's continue to look after each other. And I wish all of you continued career success and development in the new year.
Thank you so much, William. Really, really appreciate that.